Delighted to welcome my next guest on the day, and I've said this, it's hugely important, ceremonies across the world to mark 80 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp, the Jewish communities across the world coming together. Delighted to welcome former Conservative Minister Robert Halfon, who of course is Jewish and has been to Auschwitz, to the Drive Time show. How are you, Rob?
Hi, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. With everything that's going on, the madness in this country, the wokeness, this government, everything, the pictures we're seeing right now on screen, the messages across the world online, and the news stories leading with something. Can you do me a favour? Whenever I say this, people go over it. I've got many Jewish friends. Just put into words, because I don't think it is possible, is it, what the Jewish race went through all those years ago?
Well, it's something, if you're Jewish, everybody knows about the Holocaust. You're brought up with it. You watch programs about it. I've been to visit Auschwitz, and it was pretty horrific, especially standing on the railway station in Auschwitz-Birkenau, where the snow was up to the knees just on the day that I went. And by chance, you just heard dogs barking in the wood nearby. And it was just absolutely, in fact, that was probably my worst moment, even worse than going to the museum of Auschwitz. Although the wonderful thing, you saw people there with Israeli flags draped on their back, you know, unimaginable, given that Hitler tried to destroy all the Jews. But it's something that affects every Jewish person, really. And it was the kind of extreme embodiment of anti-Semitism, of the marginalization, the demonization of anyone who was Jewish or had Jewish antecedents. But what worries me, you know, it's wonderful what is going on. I'm very happy the King has gone, particularly. It's for first time, as I understand, a member of the royal family has gone. But what I worry about is the resurgence of anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. I've always felt that Britain was a wonderful place for Jewish people, but it's particularly since October the 7th, or that was happening before under Jeremy Corbyn and so on, it's been really hard for anyone of the Jewish faith because of whether they've been in schools, whether they've been in universities, whether they're just doing their daily shopping. Jew after Jew has suffered from some kind of anti-Semitism, and it's not acceptable. And this is what Auschwitz should be about, is, you know, reminding people that this is what it leads to.
Somebody once said to me, a Jewish friend of mine, the same person who told me that her kids still can't wear their school blazers in North London for fear of reprisals, and I'm with you absolutely, and no doubt I'll get slagged off later on social media, don't care at all, genuinely mean that, stand with my Jewish friends shoulder to shoulder. She told me once that whereas maybe Christians, Catholics sit down with their kids at whatever age I say will be slagged off, but, you know, to talk about the facts of life. That happens, but you also have to sit your kids down, your Jewish children, and tell them that their DNA is charged with the fact that all those years ago, an evil despot wanted to rid the place of their ancestors. And I just think on a day like this, you have to take stock. We're in a world now, we're doing a show today, Robert, where genuinely, the Royal Navy is going to change the name of a submarine from HMS Agincourt because they don't want to upset the French. The police are being told that they shouldn't say words like blacklisted and black sheep for fear of offending people. And you end up thinking, hold on a second, the irony of what those Jewish people went through and the turgid crap that people seem to think is important nowadays is, for me, unbelievable.
Well, the problem is at the moment you've got all this kind of racist and diversity and inclusion, and a lot of it is just a tick box exercise, and it's the so-called easy case. So they tick boxes to say how diverse and inclusive they are, and they do stupid things like renaming boats and so on. But in the meantime, Jewish people going to school in North London are being screamed at. That Jewish students are too frightened to leave their halls of residence, and Jewish chaplains are being threatened with a house being burnt down and their wives being to have sexual assault. You know, this is literally what has gone on over the past two years, particularly since October the 7th. So, you know, it's enough of the tick box and the use of stuff. Let's actually deal with real cases of anti-Semitism. And also the other thing, the famous comedian David Baddiel wrote, I'm not of his politics, but he wrote a book called Jews Don't Count. What is a mystery to me is that whilst there's so much focus on all other groups and ethnic minorities, it seems to me that when it comes to Jews, everyone turns a blind eye. So thousands of people are allowed to march down the streets past synagogues and so on Saturday, shouting from the river to the sea. You know, can you imagine if anyone else did that about another ethnic minority and shouted, God forbid, the N-word or whatever it was, that something, you know, they'd be arrested and dealt with straight away. And for some reason, when it comes to Jews, there is a very, very different attitude taken by the authorities in terms of dealing with anti-Semitism and racism.
One of the things that you said that I completely concur with is that the King Charles decided to go today, the Holocaust Remembrance Day, and he spoke in Poland earlier. This is for Talk. Have a listen.
As we commemorate 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz, is both a sombre and indeed a sacred moment. It is a moment when we recall the 6 million Jews, old and young, who were systematically murdered, together with Sinti, Roma, disabled people, members of the LGBT community, political prisoners. The act of remembering the evils of the past remains a vital task. And in so doing, we inform our present and shape our future.
Strong words, and I think most people would agree, but there will still be kickback with what's going on in the Middle East. Just you said before we played that, Robert, that people from the Jewish community still every day are being abused. And you said something that I thought was really important. That was never the United Kingdom. We haven't got long, but why do you think that happens now? Why do you not think it's cracked down on?
Well, first of all, as I say, it's wonderful to have the King giving his support. It means a lot. It really means a lot. And every Jewish person will be watching the King saying that and being at Auschwitz. But I don't know why this is happening in terms of anti-Semitism. My grandfather came here. My grandfather sent my father here as an immigrant because there were pogroms against the Jews where they were living at the time. My grandfather said that Britain was the greatest country in the world, the greatest country in the world. And my father came here at 15 with nothing and then made a success of his life. And that's what it was like. You know, I always grew up thinking this is a great country. I'm British, I'm maybe Jewish, but it's a wonderful place for British people, but those of the Jewish faith to live. Do I think that now? I have to question it. I still love Great Britain. I'll always live here, but I have to question it.
Robert, listen, always great to have you on. Robert Halfon, thank you. Just putting into his own words what Liberation Day means at Auschwitz.